Good evening, everyone. My name is Angel Donahue Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Special Projects at the MBTA. Very much appreciate everyone coming here for this really important project and the update that our team is going to provide. Before we get started, I wanted to open up the floor to Senator Lewis and other members of the delegation to provide a few words about the project and the work that in collaboration that we've been having over the last year to get to the point where we are today. Senator Lewis, if you are, I believe you are on, I think we will be unmuting you.
He is unmuted now.
Great.
Senator Lewis.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Angel. Appreciate this opportunity to say a few words, and I want to thank the MBTA team and Jacobs for holding this important public meeting tonight. And I certainly want to thank all of the Winchester residents and others for joining us as well. I think, as probably everyone knows, this has been a long and arduous process to bring us to this point in time. This project really got underway, more than a decade ago, and a tremendous amount of time and work has gone into moving this project forward through the years. It's a very challenging project, just given the location of the station, squeezed right in, of course, to Winchester's downtown. There's a lot that needs to be done to improve this station. And so it has taken a long time and a lot of iterations back and forth to, finalize the project design and work through all of the issues. But reaching the construction phase, which is where we are now, is really a major milestone, and I'm very pleased that we've gotten here. A lot of work still to do on demolition, of course, in the coming months, and then the construction of the new station, which will take a few years. But when the project is complete, I'm very confident that it's going to bring tremendous benefits to Winchester and the entire region. We will have a brand new, modern, safe, fully accessible commuter rail station. We will be able to encourage much greater use of public transit in this area, which is part of our goals for addressing climate change and improving our quality of life. And it will also, I believe, support transit-oriented development in the town and the area, including more affordable housing, retail, and commercial development. So it will unlock, I believe, tremendous economic potential for this area. I want to recognize and thank a number of people who have been key to moving this project forward through the years in the town of Winchester. First and foremost, town engineer Beth Rudolph, who has basically been leading this effort on the part of the town since the very beginning. I want to thank both former town manager Richard Howard and current town manager Lisa Wong for their terrific leadership. I want to thank my colleagues in the delegation throughout this process, Senator Jalen and Representative Mike Day, who've been terrific partners. And I want to finally thank the members of the Winchester Town Working Group, many of whom have been working on this project also for 10 years. They include Mary McKenna, Dave Anderson, Chris Mulhern, Brian Szekely, Heather Von Mering, Julie Riemenschneider, Lance Grenzbach, and Dave Storygard. Thank you very much to all of you for all of the input you provided on the design through many years. And I want to thank the MBTA General Manager, Steve Poftak, and his team, including the folks from the MBTA on this in the Zoom today, for all the work you've done on this project and for prioritizing this project and the funding required, which is more than $50 million to build this new station. We are deeply appreciative of that investment that the MBTA is making in this infrastructure. So again, thank you for joining us this evening, and look forward to the presentation and moving forward with the construction of the new station.
Thank you, Senator. I wanted to also turn it over to Senator Jalen and see if there were a few words that she wanted to have, and then after that we'll go to Representative Day. Senator Jalen.
I just unmuted Senator Keelan.
Now, am I there? Okay. Yeah, I want to say that I agree with Senator Lewis on all his thanks. I don't want to reiterate them because I want everybody to get straight to the viewing of the plans. I just want to say that many times we lose faith and optimism that we will ever get to starting this project. But here we are, and it's finally coming to pass. And it will be another 2 years in the making, but it will really be worth it. And I'm very excited that we are finally starting to do this work. So thanks to all the people who brought us this far, and we'll look forward to seeing what happens next. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Day, and then last but not least, Mr. Michael Betancourt, the Chair of the Board of Selectmen. Bear with me one sec, Representative Day.
His mic is now unmuted.
Representative?
Am I on there?
Yeah, yes, you are.
All right. They had me in timeout, I think, for a moment there. I'll be exceedingly brief on this end because, as we can tell with this project, time is money. This has certainly been a torturous process with price tag changing and this putting on hiatus briefly and then coming off when they realized how bad the station shape was in, dangerous wise. So our job is to make sure that we, as a legislative delegation, keep the lines of communication open, make sure that all parties are adhering to their guarantees and commitments, and move this along as expeditiously as possible. And that means on our end, making sure that the town, the residents, and the businesses all have open lines of communication with us as well as the T. I thank Angel as well as General Manager Poftak for keeping those lines open, and can assure everyone here tonight that they'll remain open as this project gets underway and as we start moving towards what Senator Lewis called that brand new, accessible, and state-of-the-art facility that I think is going to revolutionize and certainly jumpstart our downtown in Winchester.
Thank you, Representative. And last, wanted to welcome Mr. Michael Betancourt, the Chair of the Board of Selectmen. We're going to meet you in a second, and then we'll get the presentation going. Mr. Chairman, are you on?
What was the last name again, Angel? I'm sorry. What was it? Sorry.
Betancourt? Sorry, no, it's all good. Betancourt, yeah.
Can you hear me now, Angel?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. I know there's been a lot of comments already from elected officials, so I won't go on for too long, but I do want to say thank you to the MBTA for sticking with us on this project, our delegation for really fighting hard to get it back on track. And I want residents to know at the local level that we will be really starting, this is the beginning of our an ongoing communication process with residents that will look to hear feedback and make recommendations. We realize that there's going to be a lot of impact on day-to-day services and parking for our great businesses. And we're already engaging in a parking study to evaluate the impact of the project. And the demolition piece of this came a little bit faster than we perceived. And so we're responding very quickly and getting together a study, and we'll be engaging with residents on an ongoing basis. So thank you very much. We appreciate it. And that I'll just say thank you and look forward to the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now I'd like to turn it over to Nathan Ray, our Senior Project Manager, who will walk us through the presentation, and then we will open it up for questions from members of the public if they have any. So Nathan, I'll turn it over to you.
Sure. Can everybody hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're excited to update everyone on the call tonight about the latest updates to Winchester Center Station. So just to notify everybody that there's a recording and there's a Q&A best practices. There's a Q&A going on after the presentation. So we are recording this, recording the chat transcript, and it'll be considered a matter of public record. The meeting recording will be posted on the project website following the conclusion of the meeting. So at the last slide, we'll show you the project website, so you can go there for the latest information and any project updates as well. The Q&A after the presentation, like I said, please share only one question or comment at a time. You can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to submit a typed question or comment. Press the raise hand button to share your question or comment verbally. So wait for the moderator to recognize you and unmute you before speaking. So agenda for tonight, welcome and opening remarks we had already. We're going to present the demolition work as well as the update to the accessibility improvements project. This is the new station project that has traditionally been the main focus of discussion at these public meetings, and then we'll have a time for Q&A. So just to talk about the MBTA side of who's been involved with this project: Katie Cho, the Chief of Capital Delivery; Nazanin Musahebi, Deputy Chief of Capital Delivery; Anthony D. Dominicus, Senior Director of Commuter Rail Stations and Facilities; as well as Maribel Kelly, Senior Director of Commuter Rail Infrastructure. Panelists tonight are Angel, whom you've already seen, myself, Jason Peddle from SPS New England, Senior Project Manager, who is the general contractor undertaking the demolition work currently going on right now at Winchester. He's joined by Joe McInnes, also from SPS, as well as Mark Thompson, Jacobs Project Manager. Jacobs is the designer for this station. I want to first off talk about the demolition work that's currently going on at Winchester. For those who are new to the project, traditionally there's been one construction project that we've been talking about. Demolition and reconstruction was all considered to be one project. Now we are breaking it into phases. And so in this presentation, we'll be talking about the demolition work as well as the greater project happening later on this year. We call the accessibility improvements or the new station build project. So first of all, we're going to talk about the first phase, which is the demolition work. Just to give you a background to how we got here, some of you may know that on January 7th of this year, Winchester Station was closed. This was a result of an inspection that indicated significant infrastructure deterioration. MBTA then engaged SPS New England to mobilize to start necessary and urgent demolition work at the station. We call this on-call repair. This is a kind of a standby contractor that the MBTA uses to engage in such work as what we're talking about here with the demolition work at Winchester. The cost of this work or value of this work is approximately $1.2 million. And the main scope of this demolition phase of the work involves demolition of some of the ramps, some of the platforms, and all of the canopy structures at Winchester Center. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. So that's a a bit of the why, a little bit more explaining why we're doing this demolition work. So we had recently, the MBTA, undertaken bi-weekly inspections at Winchester, starting late fall last year. Of course, most people are aware of the serious nature of the deterioration at Winchester. The station was built in the 1950s with no serious renovations happening since that time. There's been rusting, falling of concrete. The station no longer meets any sort of accessibility requirements. And so that, and also due to the inspections that we were undertaking, we decided that it was, out of abundance of caution, best to close the station and start demolition work. Well, what are we doing in this phase of the project? We have undertaken pre-construction surveys of local buildings. We have implemented the traffic management control plan. We have implemented the pest control plan. We have installed temporary fencing in the areas of Laraway Road, Aberjona parking lot, as well as the Waterfield parking lot. And we have started the initial phases of the demolition of the ramps, platforms, and canopies. And of course, the station is currently closed and will remain closed during demolition, as well as through into the construction project happening in the fall. A little bit more about the project details and what exactly we're doing at this phase of the project. I'm going to take you through some elevations that will be familiar to most people on the call, and just to kind of explain in a little bit more detail what you're going to be seeing as we advance through the demolition phase of this work. You'll see we'll be removing the canopies here. This is in the Aberjona parking lot in red there. All the canopies are being removed. We are removing the ramps in this area, the overhead ramps. Those are coming down as well. A little bit further down the Aberjona, next to the Waterfield Road, again, all the canopies over the platforms as well as the ramps. The ramps themselves, we are leaving the low-level ramps in place. They will be demolished in the follow-on contract, the new build contract happening later this year. Over Waterfield Road, looking to the west, we are removing the canopies over Waterfield Road. The platform will remain in place and will be part of the scope of the new build contract happening this fall. This is at the Quill Rotary behind Thompson Street there. You see a section of ramp and overhead platforms that will be coming out. That ramp will be staying in place for now. We are removing the section of overhead platform, however, in this phase of the project. We're back down at the Waterfield lot now. We are removing all the canopies again, as well as the sections of ramps that are overhead. So all that area you see in green is coming down. Canopies over the ramps and platforms are coming down, and the remainder will be left to the project happening, the new build project happening later this year. So over on Laraway Road, just past Waterfield Road, again, all the canopies are being removed in this project. A little further down, you'll see yet again more canopies, a section of ramp that is cantilevered over Laraway Road there. That'll be removed in this demolition phase. Of course, all that temporary shoring work that you see there will be coming and being removed, coming down, being removed as well. End of Laraway Road at Quill Rotary, we are removing the section of platforms overhead and the canopies over the ramps there on the right. And that concludes the kind of the scope of what we're talking about in terms of the demolition, what we're doing in this phase of the project at Winchester. Impacts. Of course, there are service impacts already mentioned. Trains will continue running. However, they're not stopping to board and alight at Winchester Center. The local bus stop at Winchester Center is currently being bypassed. So we invite any patrons who normally board there to go to Main and Vine Streets or the closest other bus stop that may be in their area. Other project impacts include those related to construction. These may include noise, dust, vibration impacts, other sort of construction related impacts due to demolition work, as well as associated traffic impacts due to construction activity. So we'll talk a little bit more about those. To help mitigate some of these impacts that are common to every construction project, we've undertaken pre-construction surveys, like I mentioned previously. For communication purposes, we've set up a construction hotline where we can allow anyone who has a sort of concern about what's going on with construction to call that number. That'll be available at the end of the presentation. We've also set up vibration monitoring as well as noise monitoring. That's been taking place in the past few weeks to get a kind of baseline readings and understanding what the vibrations and noises are during a normal day prior to demolition. We have already set up pest control and undertaken the early stages of that plan. We are ready and are ready to implement a dust control plan. And we have started our traffic management plan, as you most likely noticed in downtown Winchester right now. So a little bit about the when. I know people are concerned about how long this work is going to go on. And so we'll just talk a little bit about that now. So we've broken down this demolition phase into 4 phases itself. Mobilization. We started going on site in early February. This is when we started the traffic management plan. We set up our pest control plans, some fencing, and we've done our precondition surveys as well in that phase. That phase is now complete. We are in phase 2 of abatement. This is the demolition work that has to happen separately before what we are calling heavy demolition work in phase 3. This is really the meat and potatoes of the demolition work, the removal of the ramps, the canopies, and the platforms. Abatement is involves removal of the roofing material on the platforms, as well as the paint on the columns, as well as the steel and other railings that are at the station right now. Final phase is demobilization. So we are clearing up and shipping off site. We are anticipating to be off site by the end of May. There's a few factors, of course, that affect this. One is the weather. We're undertaking work in winter in New England. There's certain delays that we can expect with weather. In addition to that, there are delays associated with working next to live track. We call this getting necessary track outages or track time, foul time, as well as getting the safety personnel in place to support the construction activity at Winchester is a reality in undertaking construction work next to a live track. So this schedule is something that we want to adhere to. We are working to be out of everyone's way as soon as possible, realizing that we will be back later this year for a longer stay, and we'll talk about that later. So that was the demolition phase of the project. Now I want to talk a little bit about the new build project, the accessibility improvements project that we're talking about, and sort of the updates that we have on that from our last meeting in March of last year. A little bit about the project goals and scope for this phase of the project. We have certain goals, things that we want to accomplish in each of our construction projects at the MBTA, and then sort of how do we carry out those goals and what are the specifics, and that's the scope of each of those goals. So our first goal is to increase safety for the final build of the project. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to install permanent and emergency lighting. We are installing security cameras at the platforms, as well as passenger assistant telephones. We want to, as a goal, increase accessibility. Currently, the station, when it was open, was not accessible. So this new build will see 2 fully accessible high-level side platforms, covered stairwells, wayfinding signage, new platform canopies, benches, new elevators at the south end, and an additional elevator that's been added. Another goal is sustainability. We are using new fiber reinforced polymer composite panels. So what does that mean? Well, these are lightweight, high strength to weight ratio platforms that are resistant to, for example, the deterioration that we've seen in the concrete there. This is a new material that will be resistant to weather and de-icing chemicals. And so we're anticipating that this will give that station a bit of extra longer life. Another goal is resiliency. We, of course, want to plan for more severe weather events, flooding, those sort of things. So we are locating, from an operational point of view, locating various important equipment at certain elevations so that they are resilient and resistant to weather events. Operational goals, this high-level boarding where we walk straight onto the coaches from the platform will shorten our dwell time, and we're anticipating that will result in shorter trip times and a better customer experience as well. This is the proposed future station plan. This may be familiar to some people. There are some slight changes from when we last met in March of last year. The Quill Rotary there is on the right, so that's the north, going to the north end of the station, and then Aberjona Waterfield lots on the left side of the screen. So the inbound track, that's the one on the top side, that has not changed since we last spoke. There is an elevator down at the Waterfield lot with stairs. Over on the Laraway Road section of the inbound platform, there are stairs and a ramp. What's changed in this layout that some people may not notice is formerly in the previous design there was a pedestrian bridge that extended from the outbound platform over the Quill Rotary down to a ramp on Shore Road. Subsequent to our last meeting in March, it was decided to change this plan. You'll now notice that the ramp on Shore Road has been moved down to the Aberjona parking lot. We have added an elevator behind Thompson Street at the Quill Rotary with a new set of stairs. We needed to keep a ramp to meet accessibility concerns. We want to provide redundant means of access for accessibility concerns. So these sort of changes are really what constitute the majority of the changes that you had seen previously in March. So this is what you're going to see for the new build at Winchester. This is a photo looking at the town common, looking at Laraway, Waterfield Road, rather. You see the elevators on the right-hand side there at the Waterfield lot. And you see Laraway Road there going across the middle with stairs and canopies and ramps. This is again from the town common, looking at the elevation of Laraway Road, where the current bus stop is. You see the ramps there and canopies and a stairwell at the corner of Laraway and Waterfield. So transit alternatives during construction. We know that in our patrons prior to COVID were concerned about how they would be continuing their commute during construction. A few options are available. There's a local bus that Route 134 that runs through Winchester that connects to the Orange Line. Of course, there's Wedgmere Station also in Winchester. So we invite our patrons to choose either of those options if they are going into Boston. There's the option of walking, biking, or dropping off if you are intending to go to Wedgmere Station. During construction, we are planning on supplying additional bike storage as well at Wedgmere, just to make sure that people who choose those options have that necessary availability there. We realize there are parking impacts to what we're doing. Senator Lewis said this is right in the middle of your downtown, and we are fully aware of that. The parking impacts are a very sensitive issue. We understand that the importance of people parking downtown has a very important role to play in businesses in downtown Winchester. The final build project, it will be taking up the similar amount of parking as you currently are seeing for the demolition phase of the work. The Aberdeen parking lot, there will be considerable spaces taken up there. Laraway Road as well is very key for us in affecting the work that we need to do. We need to work from Laraway Road to build the infrastructure behind Thompson Street because it's so tight in behind Thompson Street. There are some areas of the parking impacts that are for the duration of construction. I'm talking again about the final build project, the accessibility improvements project happening later this year, such as Laraway Road will be the majority of the time, as well as the Aberdeen Waterfield lots. There are some sections on Waterfield Road that you see there. We anticipate those being isolated takings to perform overnight work. There's the bridge platform work that needs to be replaced there. For the demolition phase, by the way, there's some work that needs to happen on Waterfield Road. We are anticipating that occurring at night or on the weekend. What to expect during construction. We'll again be undertaking pre-construction surveys. This is a new contract with a new contractor. So we understandably have to take new surveys to understand what the existing buildings have in terms of their condition prior to construction. A note about parking also, when speaking about service impacts, we are trying to get parking and we are anticipating a return of ridership increasing more in the fall as hopefully things start to open up again. We're looking at Shannon Beach. We're in talks with DCR, by the way, to try to find some parking spaces down there in anticipation of more patrons choosing the Wedgmere Station for their commute. So what to expect during construction, pre-construction surveys. Again, more mitigation of construction impacts, like I mentioned for the demolition project. We will have field personnel on site, MBTA field staff, resident engineers, and field inspectors. We will have the communication resources I previously mentioned, construction advisories, updates. We have our website, we have our hotline, and our email address. A little bit more about project schedule. We were at 60% design in November of 19. Final design was last March. We are advertising for the final station build project in the spring of 2021. Hopefully award that in the summer, with construction happening starting in the fall of 2021. Public outreach. please send us an email at winchesterstation@mbta.com. There's our construction hotline number and our project website. So I'll turn it back over to Angel to run the Q&A.
I think I got nominated to do the Q&A, Nathan. So Nathan, it's Joe Nolan from City Point. Thank you so much for that very informative presentation, and Angel for bringing us in, and everybody for their comments earlier. Nathan just went through the public information slide, and I just want to remind people, if you're not already on our database, please go to that and send us an email, and we'll add you so that when there are temporary shutdowns of parking in certain areas or impacts that you'd like to be made aware of, you'll be on the database and receive an email. For our question and answer period, we have some questions already in the queue. I see 6 there, but let me just go through the rules so people understand. Please share only one question or comment at a time. If you're on the telephone and you want to be recognized, dial *9, and that will alert us to your wanting to ask a question, and I'll call out the last digits of your phone number and let you know it's your turn to ask that question. As I stated earlier, and I see many of you already have, you can just type in a question in the Q&A period, and we're going to go to those in just a moment. You can also raise your hand. If you scroll down to the bottom, there's a raise hand function. If you just click on that, we will see you as an attendee with your raised hand, and we will go through those in order and give everybody a chance to ask their questions. So with that, I think we will start off with the Q&A and the written questions that we have. Excuse me. Roger Wilson asked, just as we opened up, are these slides available for download? This whole presentation with the slides will be posted on the MBTA website after it is made accessible, and that should happen, we assume, tomorrow. So that will be available for people to review. The next question that was asked was, it was noticed today that asbestos removal appears to be done in an unsafe manner. If workers are wearing asbestos removal suits, why is the asbestos not being disposed of using safety guidelines, i.e. no breakage, plastic encasements, etc.? So Nathan or one of your team, could you elaborate a little bit more on the asbestos removal process and the guidelines that are being implemented?
Sure. So backing up a little bit, in the design phase of the project, we had underwent a hazardous materials building survey. This is very common in the construction industry. That survey identified asbestos in the roofing materials of the platforms. The roofing materials in the canopies of the ramps did not have asbestos, but there was asbestos identified in the roofing material of the platforms. This is very common for the construction of the era. In addition, there was lead paint found on most of the steel, the columns, I think the railings as well. So these have to be demolished or abated in a special manner. There's regulations and rules regarding how this asbestos and lead is abated. So you saw in the schedule that we are currently undertaking the abatement phase of the demolition work. And so it's important to note that, when you talk about asbestos, it's usually grouped into one of two hazards. We call it friable or non-friable. Friable being the more hazardous material that's crumpled, pulverized, or reduced to powder with just your hand pressure, as well as then you have the non-friable, which is the less serious or less hazardous risk. It's not easily, crumpled with your hand. So we have non-friable asbestos on the roofing material at Winchester. This is the safer, more easier to deal with asbestos. So we hired a SPS New England, who hired a specialized demolition company to undertake this work. We have a resident engineer on site. They are monitoring the work. In regards to making this work safe, it's done with various means of making sure that none of the asbestos becomes airborne, This was done through watering of the roof. You wet the material before it's removed. There are HEPA shrouds on the tools that they use. They remove the roofing material in pieces and dispose of it in bins that are wrapped in plastic. And so we handle the asbestos in this manner. It is our understanding that this was done according to all the regulations that stipulate how this work is to be carried out. When the concern was raised today, our resident engineer was on site. He was able to confirm that everything was being followed as per regulation. If there's any other sort of hazards or concerns that are out there, we're welcome at any time to hear those. But there was an asbestos abatement plan that was submitted prior to any work starting. That plan was approved, and it was in accordance with standard practices for removing this type of, as I say, non-friable asbestos. And I don't know if Mark or anyone from SPS wants to add to that.
So Nathan, I think that's a pretty expansive reply, and I know that obviously you as the project manager, the MBTA as the owner, and our contractors are it's a very important issue, and we're paying close attention to it. And we expect that the abutters and our neighbors in Winchester will hold us to that task, and it's a priority. That I think covers the question from Paul Pinella, and also the question from Lorraine Murtaugh. But if Paul or Lorraine have any further questions, let us know. But those are both specifically, essentially, the same demo questions. I'm going to go on to parking, which you illustrate. You touched upon during your presentation. There are two questions on parking, and I'm going to go with the first one, which is very basic, which is where are project workers parking during demo and the new build? I will say that we know that parking, while always at a premium in Winchester Center, with the commuter rail station inactive and ridership very low because of the COVID pandemic right now, it may not be an issue, but we expect ridership to come back, and at some point we'll be utilizing some more parking down there. So can you maybe illustrate a little bit on the parking, Nathan, some more, and talk about, I think you made the point, and I think it's important for people to know that certain areas are temporary as we go under the bridge, for instance, et cetera.
Sure, just so people are aware, just about the demolition and the parking concerns in the demolition phase of the work. During the remainder of the work that's going on, generally we're attacking it, SPS New England is planning the work from south to north. So we are starting in the Aberjona and Waterfield lots and moving north. So, in the interest of freeing up parking space as soon as possible, we are considering releasing those Aberjona and Waterfield lots if time permits and it's feasible to do so. We're very happy, to turn those lots over, take the fencing away so people can park in those lots again. Unfortunately, we do need Laraway Road. It's going to be a main center of loading trucks in and out with debris. Just another important note is the town of Winchester runs the parking. The MBTA does not control parking at Winchester. That being said, we understand that a lot of our neighbors and patrons are concerned about parking. So, we've undertaken to work with Shannon Beach, DCR, to try to get more parking down there. And, the longer that we can, try to plan and mitigate for the parking, and the sooner we can get on that, the better. And we understand that the issues around the parking. I believe, and this is just from what I understand, that a majority of some of these Aberjona and Waterfield lots were commuter rail permitting spots. Of course, we closed the station now. So the understanding is that a lot of those spots that were commuter rail permit spots are no longer being used for that purpose. I don't know, sure if someone from Winchester could probably answer this question better. But we with talks with Winchester and the town workers, and it's always first and foremost in conversations about what is the parking impact. We're aware that parking is a very important issue, and we take it very seriously and try to plan with our contractor what parking they'll need, how long they'll need it for, and how we can best turn that over back to the public as soon as possible.
The only other thing that I would add to that, Nate, is that we do work really closely, obviously, with the town, as Nathan had mentioned, and we are exploring other options such as Shannon Beach with DCR to see what available parking we can turn on there to alleviate some of those concerns from folks. And those are active conversations that are going on at the moment, and obviously we're going to be monitoring ridership very closely. So that's the only thing I would add to that.
Well, we do have other parking questions, and I'm just going to read the question by Alan Aiden about the possible availability of additional parking or constructability in the future. Alan mentioned that, as you know, the availability of parking in Winchester Station, an ongoing issue. Over the next few years, we'll be losing many spaces, some temporarily, some permanently. Has there been some thought to allowing the town to extend parking in the Aberjana lot towards Ginn Field to recover spaces lost to the new station? It's his understanding that the wooded area next to the tracks are MBTA property. This issue will become even more critical when the new station opens and commuter parking returns to Winchester Center. I don't know if that's been a dialogue with the town as of yet, and or if that might be an option down the road.
I can't speak specifically to the area in question. I know that there's I think a lot of potential down in that area. As I said, the MBTA does not control parking at Winchester. We don't rent spaces. I think part of the, incidentally, why the decision to get off the Shore Road was that we were taking up a lot of parking spaces. And so we are anticipating taking up less parking spaces with this new design for the final build. But that's certainly something, that Alan mentioned. We can talk about that with the town.
So Nathan, another parking question from an anonymous attendee. It's construction limited parking spaces, removing all spots in Lower Aberjana. I just got a scroll down as we got more questions, sorry. And we mentioned might close off, construction demo continues. Will alternate permit parking spots be made accessible? Will other spots be reassigned as permit? And I don't know if they're talking about commuter rail permit there or some other local permit, but I know you could, again, if you could repeat yourself on the efforts being taken to generate more parking available in the region.
Sure. Again, the MBTA doesn't control parking spots in downtown Winchester. I know that there are commuter rail permits. I believe there are permits for downtown employees, and there's also a mixture of metered parking. I understood Mike Betancourt to say there was a parking study going on. I don't want to preempt anything that may come out of that study. Certainly the MBTA is willing to work with Winchester to help out any way we can to help alleviate any sort of pressure in regards to parking for downtown businesses.
Great. So another comment from Elena Baker is great progress here. Anticipated time frame for the completion of the construction phase if it starts in the fall of 2021.
Sure, we are looking at that right now, Elena. We are anticipating, obviously, with doing 2 construction projects, there are some inefficiencies. Our preference would have been to do 1 construction project, as was always the case at Winchester. With the advent of the station closure due to the inspections, we felt it was best to undertake this demolition phase, this urgent demolition work first, and do that. Will there be some time savings with the follow-on project in the fall? Yes, we fully anticipate that. It's less efficient, however, just because, you know, this project, the demolition phase takes however many months. You know, the assumption can't necessarily be made that we're going to save those same number of months for the follow-on accessibility improvements project. You know, there's an additional mobilization, additional demobilization, just inefficiencies with those. That being said, we are tentatively estimating for approximately a 28-month project starting in the fall. This still has to be vetted by we need to update this and become more certain of it with schedulers who undertake this work for us. They need to look at what's happening. You know, I think the last time we had 29 months. We are starting this at a different time than we would have started it as originally planned under the 29-month scheme. And we're now be moved into more than 2 winters, whereas before we were planning on just having maybe 1 winter or 1.5 winters worth of construction. Of course, when you do work in the winter, it slows construction down and therefore prolongs the whole schedule of the work. So that's where we're planning for right now. This is to be confirmed, of course, but that's a number that we are using for planning purposes right now.
Okay, so 28 months, and we're looking to see what efficiencies can be made. What safety measures will be in place between demolition and beginning construction? Will the site be secured, I think is what's being asked here?
Yes, we will secure the station. We'll leave it in a safe manner. We will leave it fenced off. However, we just want to ensure that no one can gain access to the platform area once we leave over the interval time of the demolition phase and the new construction project. So we will be fencing it off, yeah.
Okay, so thank you for that question, Lane. Mike Liu asks, how can I subscribe to future notifications? And I can save you on that one, Nathan. And Mike, if you go to the, send an email to Winchester Station at mbta.com, we will add you to the database, or visit www.mbta.com Winchester Station, where you'd get the same links. And you will then receive updates as the project goes forward. So Shu Kong asks, it would be helpful to have signage at both train and bus stop areas to suggest alternative routes. I was at the station and someone asked me where the station went, and I pointed him to the direction of Wedgemere. But there does not seem to be any signage to point to either Wedgemere or Vine Street bus stop. Maybe a map, you're here and you could go there. That's certainly, I would think, something we can put on the website and put out as advisory. But Nate, is there a possibility to do some additional directional signage during construction to direct towards other modes of transportation?
Absolutely, yes. We can take care of that. My understanding that there was signage up there for the bus stop in particular, but we should have something directing people to Wedgemere. You're absolutely right. Thank you for that comment.
Thank you. And Shu Kong has another question. Please describe the anticipated status of the Chamber of Commerce building. Will that be staying, or is it going to be demolished as part of this project?
Part of this project, that building is not part of the scope of the work that we're doing for either the demolition or the accessibility improvements project. We're not touching that building.
Okay. So I know that earlier iterations contemplated it. So the current scope is that the Chamber of Commerce building will stay as it is. Will restrooms be available at Stop and Shop and sanitation services? I'm sorry, I misspoke. Will restrooms be available at Stop and sanitation services for same, as well as barrels for refuse on ramps, parking areas, and completed project? So I guess, are we going to have bathrooms, and what are we supplying for other amenities and trash receptacles?
Restrooms are not part of the final build for Winchester. Our general plan for restrooms is that people use the restrooms on the trains. As far as trash receptacles, we are including those in the design at Winchester.
Okay. So the next question I don't understand, but maybe I'll submit the video of the removal. I assume that maybe someone made a video of the asbestos removal today, and they can certainly submit that in for us to look at. I know our staff, that project staff, was on the ground when that happened, but if they want to submit that in through the website, that's perfectly acceptable. We can take that in and get it to the project. Now, I just want to look and see. Okay, so Debbie Johnson asked, she was unfortunately late to the meeting. Did I hear that the plan for the Quill Rotary Outbound ramp has been relocated back to the Aberjana parking lot off Waterfield?
Yes. From the last presentation in March of last year, we relocated that ramp. We are no longer building anything on the Shore Road area, nor are we building anything over the Quill Rotary. I just want to point out that I think Lisa Wong's answering some questions in regards to pertinent to Winchester, the town of Winchester, related questions, parking, Chamber of Commerce building. So I don't know if people want to check that out, or you want to repeat that.
Lisa answered some questions, and yeah. So why don't we go through them, and I don't know, well, so that was covered, and I think Paul says yes, thank you. Waterfield Road continues to appear in your renderings as 4 lanes of traffic. That's not how the road is used. We have 2 lanes of traffic and 2 lanes of parking. Is that going to be 4 lanes of traffic now?
No, that for rendering purposes, we were trying to focus on what we're doing, the scope of work at the station. There's obviously 2 parking lanes and 2 driving lanes on Waterfield Road. We're not planning on touching or changing any of that MBTA in this project.
Okay. So an anonymous attendee asked, regarding construction/demo noise, any idea how loud that is anticipated to be? As a local professional office that is on calls, court hearings all day, this is a considerable concern.
Sure. Just about noise, we have monitoring in place. We are recorded, what the normal noise levels are in the area. There's obviously trains running by, and the normal sort of din of the traffic in downtown Winchester. So we are monitoring and to get updates as quickly as possible in terms of what the effects of the demolition work are at Winchester. We are taking steps to try to mitigate any sort of disturbances, but we do have to take down some the concrete. This is done using fairly large machinery. I think I'm going to pass the rest of that poor answer on to either Mark or Jason. Maybe Jason from SPS can add a little bit more of the noise impact with his proposed means and methods.
Thanks, Nathan. So yeah, as Nathan pointed out, we'll be monitoring the noise, and we've taken baseline measurements to date. So we have the ability that if the noise reaches a certain threshold, we can stop the activities and reevaluate what we're doing. With regards to the machinery that we're using, Nathan mentioned that we're taking efforts to mitigate noise and vibration. The demolition contractor is using machines that are less disruptive than machines that they could. Instead of jackhammering all of the concrete, it'll be selectively removed and disposed of, which will significantly reduce vibration and noise. So I would say that's the biggest mitigation effort.
Thank you, Jason. Now you mentioned earlier, and I just caught up while Jason was talking, Nathan, that Winchester Town Manager has answered some questions with regard to parking. She put in here in the chat, said that the town changed 57 spaces in Aberjohny and Waterfield from permit to 2 hours. Permit parkers should not be parking those spots. Ginn is controlled by DCR. They've had conversations, but not much progress yet to use the field. Town's looking at a parking study and analyze what further changes can be made to alleviate those issues. And also, Town Manager Wong mentioned that with regard to the Chamber of Commerce, we did mention that it's not going to be demolished as part of this project, but the building is scheduled to be removed as part of the Waterfield lot redevelopment, likely to start in 2023. So going back to, Lorraine Murtaugh asked, if parking in Wedgmere becomes inadequate, will there be consideration of some shuttle service from Aberjohny to Wedgmere Station?
We looked at that option. Just speaking specifically about Wedgmere, again, the MBTA does not control parking at Wedgmere. I believe it's controlled by DCR and a little bit by the town, if I'm not mistaken. We looked at the cost of busing in this project to get patrons from Winchester Center over to Wedgmere. It was very cost prohibitive. We decided that that wasn't something that we were going to offer our patrons for this project. We nonetheless invite patrons to make their way to Wedgmere if possible. We understand that this is disruptive to their commutes. But in terms of paying for the cost of busing each day for the length of this project, it was something that we just couldn't squeeze into our budget.
And you're going to be, and you mentioned earlier, and I'll run the risk of repeating myself, that you're looking at the Shannon Beach property specifically and other ways to mitigate parking issues as service comes back online and we're building the station.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. Yeah. So we are, again, in talks with DCR. We have been in the past for the possibility of opening up, at least off-season, some parking spaces down there where patrons can walk from the DCR lot over to Wedgmere.
Great. And we'll be on top of that. This is something that's going to be an evolving thing. This is not a new concern only to Winchester. This is common on construction projects like this, and we'll be working closely with the town and with the community to try and identify ways to solve it as it evolves. As I said, with the no parking at the station now, that helps downtown, but hopefully some of these options will break in the near term as riders come back onto the MBTA. A question about parking amenities: could any of these new parking spots the MBTA might identify and create include EV chargers at any locations?
We certainly can work with the town to supply those, in any way we can, work with them to help that become a reality for the parking spots that the town is controlling. Again, the MBTA doesn't control any parking spots at Winchester. So parking is really not really in the scope of what we're doing. That's why, we need space, and we've been in talks with the town to get the space we need to build this station. The property we own at Winchester is basically follows the length of the viaduct through town. About 10 feet or 12 feet or so off of each side of the viaduct is our property line, and that's the space that we can control and own.
Okay, so just to summarize, that there's no EV chargers in the scope of the current project, but would be happy to work with the town to see what long-term, what solutions they might want to impart down there. Water drainage accumulates at the traffic circle. Will drainage be improved as part of this project?
I don't believe we are touching the drainage in the traffic circle. I know we are affecting the drainage in other parts of the project. I'm going to let Mark Thompson elaborate on what we're doing in terms of drainage. Mark.
So Nathan, we won't be improving any of the drainage around in the Quill Circle, but the drainage coming out of the station itself will be improved, and will meet all the Clean Water Act as far as putting water into the system. So, but we wouldn't be going outside of the station itself into any of the parking areas, and especially on Quill Rotary.
Okay, so I think Kayla C has a question about the noise mitigation measures, and I think you guys touched on that before. Kayla, if you have more specific questions, you can certainly send us an email at the project as things evolve, as things start to get a little noisier, and you want information and on mitigation and stuff. We can continue that conversation. But the next question is kind of similar. It's more vibration. Winona and Ken L. Muller asked, will impact of vibration be evaluated prior to, during, and after construction for nearby buildings, especially considering many are historical?
Yes, yeah, we set up vibration monitor seismographs prior to construction starting. In regards to vibration, we did undertake pre-construction condition surveys. We went into nearby buildings at owner's approval and consent, and just did those surveys there, and so that we could after construction verify that what if anything changed in the buildings. So before, during, and after, we have these monitoring these seismograph monitors in place. And so we are continually monitoring for vibration during the project.
Thank you, Nathan. Sally Dale asked, this is a good question, Sally. I've noticed the same thing. Who will keep the glass clean in the glass towers? The glass at Alewife has not been well maintained and has aged poorly. Not you, Nate?
Somebody will, hopefully. You know what? That's a good question. I haven't, thought about that maintenance aspect of the project yet. Obviously, that these elevators are built to our specifications that the MBTA likes to have. There's accessibility, security concerns reasons that we make these elevator shafts out of glass. So that if anyone's in distress, we can see them on the outside. But in terms of maintenance, I'll have to check and see what we're doing in other places at the T for maintenance on these.
I know in West Acton Station, which was built a couple of years ago, similar glass towers, those seem to have been maintained and held up pretty well. Alewife is a little bit older, but that's a good point. Well, we'll have an answer for that in the near term and maybe put it up on the website. Lynn Brodsky, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be, asked, will there be any enclosed space on the inbound platform so that one can wait protected from the elements?
In the new design, there will not be any enclosed space. We understand that patrons have been waiting in the second floor of the Chamber of Commerce building. That was something that the town supplied. Because we are elevating the platforms 4 feet so that so we can achieve the level boarding that we desire for accessibility. Maintaining that access presented some difficulties from the Chamber of Commerce building, and so we increased the amount of canopies on the inbound platform since our last meeting due to public requests. And so we feel that this meets our MBTA design standards and supplies a suitable level of protection from elements for the station.
Okay, so will there be windscreens and canopies, but no access to that Chamber of Commerce building, which sounds like it's going to be gone in a couple of years also. So are there any updated designs? I'm sorry, Debbie Johnson asked, are there any updated design visuals of the change in the outbound ramp design? I believe we have those on. There's some in this presentation, which will be presented, but we can put more visuals up on the website as well. Does that sound right, Nathan?
Design visuals. The only design visual update I have is the layout from the presentation. It showed the Aberjona ramp that we have relocated from the Shore Road area.
So we don't have a visual of the other side of the rotary without the ramp.
I'm searching my memory. I don't believe we do. No.
Okay. I just want to note that I may have misspoke on the Chamber of Commerce building, that it's going to be renovated and not removed. So I think I misspoke there. I apologize. Going on to the other questions. Lorraine Murtaugh, I understand the MBTA is not responsible for the parking lots, since the MBTA's closure of Center Station could cause double the number of commuters reliant on Wedgmere Station. Should not the MBTA provide shuttle service in appropriate form, Aberjana to Wedgmere? I think that was covered earlier. If at some point Wedgmere becomes insufficient, I think the solution for Wedgmere is going to be additional alternative parking if we can secure that. But do you want to speak to that anymore, Nathan?
Really, yeah. We're trying to work with DCR to get additional parking down at Shannon Beach. This is what we're trying to do in terms of people who want to park and use the service at Wedgmere. Increased bike lockups there as well. We're inviting our patrons to use any of these services. Hopefully, when they get sorted out in time for construction. Again, just to reiterate, there are three aspects of a project. Cost, schedule, and scope. We had a certain budget that we needed to meet, and the busing, unfortunately, was something that was really cost prohibitive. So we needed to make some tough decisions, and we focused on the scope of the station build, and the temporary bus shuttle had to be dropped, unfortunately.
Okay, so moving on to Peter, I can answer this one. Peter Pulsfer just sent an email to Winchester Station at MBTA.com and got an automatic response from Amanda Smith. Amanda Smith was with City Point and left last week. So it says, thank you for your email. Please email Kim Tracy. So we will fix that tonight. So those emails were forwarded to somebody who is no longer on the project, but we will take care of that. Wee Chan asked, will you consider putting solar panels on some of the roof shade of the station?
Yeah, we've, this question has come up before. We have limited canopy space at Winchester. Maintenance is a concern for these solar panels. Maintaining things next to live track is, and cleaning these things when they're on a viaduct, 30 feet in the air, was prohibitive for us. It's not necessarily a design standard that we follow with MBTA. That being said, it's definitely something that we've spoken to the town about. The town has broached the subject, and we anticipate discussing this again in the near future, how we can integrate solar panels, and what that would be used for at the station.
Okay. I know that they've been implemented at a lot of other stations. Mostly those are at grade stations that are a little easier to access as opposed to up on the viaduct. But that's obviously something that the T supports when possible. Anonymous attendee asked, are maintenance prevention incorporated for future to prevent the deterioration, promote longevity, which seems to be an ongoing need throughout the MBTA history? I know you mentioned some of the new materials that are going to be used, Nathan, on the platforms that are supposed to, have more resiliency and longevity. Do you want to talk any more about other, or that could fall into the category of our follow-up that we can get post on the website with regard to maintenance at the station?
Sure. Yeah. The main aspect that we're really keen on implementing at Winchester is FRP panels, this fiber resin polymer panels, high strength to weight ratio. They are reported to be very resistant to the usual wear and tear of winter de-icing chemicals. So this is the main aspect of the resiliency and longevity prevention of, and maintenance concern items that we have are the platforms. So that's the main infrastructure that we're really keen on implementing at Winchester in terms of prevention of deterioration.
Thank you, Nathan. And I think the last written question we have is again from Winona and Ken L. Moeller. Is multi-level parking in the plan for the future? I know it's, you want to elaborate on that, Nate, and what you may have heard or discussed?
Right. So parking is not in the scope of work that we are doing at Winchester. We don't control parking at Winchester. I know there's lots of other MBTA stations where the MBTA does control parking and they own parking spots. Not like that at Winchester. I'm not sure if it's in the work for the Waterfield development lot to add multi-level parking, but it's not part of something that we're considering at this time for the final build, the accessibility project.
Okay. So Paul Johnson asked, why is the new construction starting in the fall and not immediately after the completion of demolition? And he graciously, thank you, Paul, for thanking us for all our hard work and best. So why is there a delay between the end of demolition and the beginning of the new project, the improvement project?
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. There's some preliminary legwork that needs to be done. Some more discussions with the town. We need to kind of rejig our plans a bit, our construction plans and specifications, because we divided the project into two. There was work that's no longer part of the original scope of the project that had to be taken out, and we need a certain we need to have approvals and new estimates and new schedules for both estimates for cost as well as schedule in place before we advertise. There's certain obligations that the MBTA in receiving federal money has to perform before we procure a contractor. There's a certain advertisement phase. There's a bid phase, and then a contractor is selected through a standardized process. And then there's a certain amount of submittals that happen after the project's been awarded. This takes a certain amount of months. There's insurances that have to be exchanged and documents signed. And unfortunately, this takes a number of months to do. And so that's the reason why we're saying it's going to be in the fall of 2021.
Thank you, Nathan. Debbie Johnson asked, as you are planning on reusing some of the old face stonework, will it be stored off-site until it is needed again? She's concerned about the possibility of theft or vandalism.
Sure. Yes. There is elements of reuse of the stone in the accessibility project happening in the fall. For this demolition phase, we tried to really keep the demolition to not just the areas that are that need most urgently to be demolished, but work that would kind of, that we could leave and come back to without, doing a whole lot of leaving a whole lot of mess behind, like stacked stone here and there. So, that being said, we are planning on reusing some stone in the station, full station build. We're not concerned about theft. We'll have our people, secure the site after the demolition phase is over with, and we'll have our security people monitoring the station as well.
Great. Well, that covers all the written questions that we had. I know we promised everyone to have them out by 7:30, and we're approaching that time. We can certainly entertain any further questions, and I don't know if Nathan or Angel would like the last word. I guess last chance for questions. And while you're thinking about that, I invite everybody really to send an email into the Winchester Station, MBTA.com. We'll fix the connection for who it goes to, and visit the MBTA website. And we really appreciate your patience and consideration. I've been on the fringe of this project for the duration, so I know how patient you guys have been, and we've tried to work really closely with you. I'm excited to see this thing going, but I'll turn it over to the professionals. Angel, do you want to close us out?
I just wanted to say thanks, everyone, for all the work. And again, we look forward to continuing to work with the town and the delegation and all of you. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to send them over to the Winchester Station at MBTA.com email, and we will be as responsive as possible to them. So we look forward to seeing you guys back soon. And thanks for your hard work.
Okay, I do see one last question, and I'll leave it to you, Nate. Where will the workers be parking? Where are our workers parking?
Sure. Yeah. So, obviously, we've been in discussion with the town. We're concerned about, the amount of workers that could be on site for the full accessibility project build. We have our planning and have, implementing into our construction contract separate places where the contractor can park that will not affect the parking for businesses that have customers who want to park downtown.
Okay. Well, with that, I think we're going to close out tonight's meeting. I again thank you all. I invite you to visit the MBTA Winchester website and email. And if you have any questions as the demolition goes on, send them in there. There's also the construction hotline. And thank you to everybody on this team, everybody in the community, and our partners, elected officials, and in the community there as well. So I think that's it. Everybody have a great evening, and we'll talk to you soon.